Welcome back to the Autoblog Podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. We have an awesome show for you. It is supersized. It is loaded to the gills with all kinds of things. But I'm going to bring in senior editor for all things green, Beltz Snyder. How are you, man?
I can't complain. Happy, healthy, and coming into the summer, whole different vibe around here in Michigan. So it's looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying the longer days and the warmer weather.
Yeah.
It's like I was literally outside last night at like 9:30, moving some mulch to try to get that right aesthetic for the flower beds out front. And you can't do that in November,
Right. Yeah, I'm about ready to take some slow evening cruises in the Beetle with the windows down.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I need to get to the driving range while there's extra hours, get some more golf in.
Yeah.
Last night I did do your tofu recipe. I forgot to tell you this offline, so I'll tell you this on the podcast. Worked out great. The cornstarch made just cornstarch, right? I think that made a nice little crispy kind of texture for the tofu. The noodles came out a little squishy. That was my fault. But the jar Thai sauce was pretty nice too.
All right.
Worked out good. I call it 2-beer tofu Tuesday because I usually have a beer wall. My rule is if you're boiling water, you should open a beer or something.
That's a good rule.
Gives you about 10, 15 minutes. You let the boil come to a roll and hey, you're a beer into your night. And
that's brilliant.
So I suggest that. There's no spend my money this week, but if you're going to spend your money, buy a case of beer or a sixer or whatever you're doing while you're boiling water. I had some Sam Adams cherry wheat, just kind of a nice, summer kind of taste.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Nice. So, I've been enjoying some of the sort of farmhouse styles from Brewery Vivant.
Yes.
And then I just have, my sister gave me a bunch of random Gozas. I forget what company they're from. It's not a Michigan company, but they're all really good. I love a nice crisp Goza.
Yeah, those are good. Farmhouse beers, I think, are good, especially in like the spring and the summer. It's kind of the right kind of vibe, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, summer beers, drop them in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter. It's podcast@autoblog.com for summer beers, but also spend my monies. We'd love to get a few of those in.
And I did see the email from a listener about the Oro de Calabasa from Jolly Pumpkin.
Oh, okay.
Tremendous beer.
That.
It's I believe it's pumpkin. I think it has pumpkin in it, but you don't really taste pumpkin. It's not like pumpkin spice. It's a sort of a sour thing going on, and it's big and flavorful. And Ann Arbor, we have Jolly Pumpkin down here, and then they've got a couple other places around the state.
We were just at that one maybe a month ago, the one in Midtown in Detroit.
Oh, nice.
I had one of the farmhouse ales, one of the lighter ones, kind of a lower ABVs. Very solid. It was also barely noon, so I wasn't looking to really downshift into a day of drinking. It was just kind of a family day, and farmhouse ale with what was essentially a pretty early lunch even for me.
Yeah.
Pretty good. But should probably get into the show. We have so much to cover.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to run through news. Compact Toyota pickup. This story really resonated on the site. We're going to break down what we think that means. Polestar 3 and 5. We've got one is actually here. The other we're seeing sort of European Union patent renderings. John and I are going to just play a little tennis handball here. Do you think Elon Musk needs a PR person? Automotive News suggested this. I don't think they're wrong. I don't think it would hurt, but it's an interesting theory. And then there's some specs and pricing out on the Honda HR-V. And it's a pretty significant update to that small crossover. We had a long-termer a few years back. It generally was pretty mediocre in all aspects. So we'll talk about if we think they've moved the ball a little bit forward. Huge drive section. We're going to keep this kind of tight, though, if you will. So GMC Sierra, it's going back today. It's sitting out in front of my house, $70,000+. It's Denali. It's pretty wild. It has the Duramax diesel under the hood. I drove the EV6 last week. Also nice. I have our driveway test up that went up yesterday. Check that out. I thought that car was beautiful. I can't wait to talk about that a little bit. John drove the Kona Electric and the Buick Enclave Avenir. It's been a while since we've talked about the Enclave, even though we have been talking about the Wildcat in the Electric on the Electra on the podcast. So pretty big show. Yeah. We'll close things out with Father's Day gift guide. We're going to bring in podcast producer and Autoblog multimedia producer Erik Maier, who's going to talk about some of the picks. John and I have some takes on those and just some of the deals that are still out there. If you're looking to get yourself something or get somebody important in your life a good Father's Day gift. So let's jump right in. This Toyota compact truck. This would be slotting below the Tacoma. It would be essentially a head-on Maverick competitor, which is something maybe the original Tacoma, when it was smaller, it tended to fill that slot. I really think there's a ton of space for Toyota to do this. I think they have some brand credibility to play in this area too, much like Ford does. And I think they could get in there. Hyundai is in there with the Santa Cruz. It's not doing quite as well as the Maverick is. But I think Toyota could get in there and go basically head to head with Ford.
Yeah, I mean, Ford's a truck company, and Toyota, they've been making trucks for a really long time. And first of all, let me say, I love the fact that we're getting some of these compact pickups now. I think it's a great segment. A lot of people, especially right now with the high gas prices, you might be tired of commuting in your F-150 or whatever. So yeah, being able to get into something smaller and save some gas and still have a lot of that utility makes a lot of sense. For Toyota, what I would really like to see is them use their hybrid technology. It's super solid. Ford used hybrid tech as standard in the Maverick, which I thought was a brilliant move, making the entry version the very efficient version, which makes sense. And I think Toyota would be smart to do the same thing. They've got, just a tremendous hybrid powertrain that has proven itself for, decades now. And I think that would be a great move for them. I would want more headroom in it than in the Tacoma, though. the Taco's a little low on headroom. That's my one complaint there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they have to go hybrid for this application. And I think it's, the Maverick is very usable. It's comfortable, it's drivable, pick your sort of cliche, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you get a decent sized bed. It's not really much work to drive as opposed to something like the Ranger, which is a little bit of work to drive. Mm-hmm. I could see them coming in and making this a product that could really work for a lot of different people. So, I mean, I think Ford essentially used the Maverick as a replacement for the Focus. And Toyota has made no indication that they're going to move away from anything smaller. Because their car lineup is doing pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
But this could really augment that from sales. And, they have that attitude too, like a cool, small Toyota truck that could really do something.
Yeah. I mean, they know how to make a good looking truck. If they could keep it, keep sort of the Tacoma and the Tundra styling, don't, make it shout hybrid or something like the Prius. The trucks, stick with the truck styling, and I think you'll see some success there.
In our article, you can see we close things out with, we expect a new Tacoma next year, a new 4Runner the year after that. So the timeline roughly could be like 2025 or something. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually realize the Tacoma wasn't really a mid-sizer per se until like 2005. So, for a lot of its history, it was actually a little on the smaller side.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've seen so much bloat from everywhere that, lots of cars have gotten bigger, and now automakers are able to sort of replace those older versions of their original models with a new nameplate that's smaller and just sort of fills that space that they stepped out of.
Do you think they would use the Hilux name?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Just because that's already a global thing. They would probably pick a new name for this. But the Hilux is great. Bring us a Hilux.
All right. So shifting gears over to Polestar, some news this week. We saw some renderings of the 5, which looks pretty great. And then the 3 was like officially debuted. It's going to have the launch one it's a dual motor setup. We know it's going to be built in South Carolina, which is kind of cool. And this is the crossover of the field for Polestar so far. So I've driven the 1 and the 2. You, I believe, have as well. Yep. My column on the 1 just went up an hour ago, so timing is pretty fortuitous. I'm really intrigued by this. This is what's going to make Polestar like a Tesla fighter, something very like more mainstream, as opposed to the 1, which, as I wrote, that's like a Pebble Beach car. And it was a hybrid, actually, ironically. So this is one that I think competitors include a range of things like the Model Y, the Model X, the Fisker Ocean. I don't know, the Chevy Bolt, all sorts of different things. But this is definitely a mainstream play.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell from the photo how big this car actually is, but it's going to be built on the same platform as the next gen Volvo XC90, so there could be some good space inside of there. With EVs, they're able to package them differently and give a lot of that space that was maybe used by mechanical things, transmission, internal combustion engine, and fill that space with other mechanical stuff and give more space back to the cabin. So it could be one of those things where it's sort of House of Leaves, bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, especially if they are using that platform. Especially with the new XC90 coming out, they're going to have a pretty clean sheet to work with. So looking forward to seeing more of this. From the photos, the photo, I like the look of it. It's got that big glass roof that we've seen in the Polestar 2. Some hard to tell kind of what's going on up front. There looks to be some sort of spoiler like on the hood. But there's also a teaser video that shows a lot of the lighting, and it looks really nice.
Sounds good. What do you think of the 5? That's, again, even a little bit farther down the field here for the Polestar lineup.
So the patent drawings, I don't think, do this car justice, just because there's not a lot of detail on it. You get the shape and you get some details of the shape, but once you get color and texture onto the car, it really changes it. But they did a pretty good job of borrowing the silhouette from the Precept concept, and I really like the rear end of this car. It really reminds me of the Polestar 1 in that way. It's just kind of like a stretched out Polestar 1. It's less chunky of a styling than the Polestar 2, more that sleeker, sportier. Sort of looks like could be a good grand touring car for 4 adults. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Polestar has proven that it can make entertaining cars that have completely unique design inside and out. And they really stand out from anything else on the road. Whenever I see a Polestar 2, which is not very often, my eyes are drawn to it immediately. The design is just fantastic. So really looking forward to seeing their new designs on these new vehicles as they come out.
I think I do see some of the Polestar 1 and the 5, and this could be intriguing. I think it's it's just another marker in the Polestar lineup as they try to grow that brand. And when I look at just some of the startup EV makers, I give Polestar, I think they have a little bit of a head start because they're obviously backed by Volvo. They're not really a startup.
Right.
But they are a startup brand, and getting some, market awareness, getting, some space in that Volvo complex down in South Carolina. They're making significant gains, and I'm intrigued to see where they go. I've been impressed with both the products that I've tested.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, they're backed by bigger companies, Volvo and Geely, but they're going forward with that small automaker mentality, sort of doing things their own way with their stores and whatnot. And I hope they keep that identity. I think they will. But it's nice that they have that larger support to rely on with Volvo and in terms of manufacturing and design and things like that. They have inspiration to draw from.
Yeah, definitely. And hey, you can still get the Orifice Crystal shifter in some of the cars. At least you could in the one. So
yeah.
Cool. So shifting over to somebody who is a legacy EV company. I don't know. Can we call Tesla that? I don't know. They've been around for 15 plus years now.
Yeah, if you qualify it by EV company, yeah, they are the legacy EV company.
Exactly.
They're not like a legacy automaker, but as far as EV companies go, yes, absolutely.
Do you think Elon Musk needs a PR guy, either for Tesla or just in general? The reason I ask is many of you out there probably read automotive news too. They're, very serious, flagship, industry source for the car business. There's a kind of a opinion, I guess is what I would call it, an editorial on this subject. And I thought that's interesting. They used to have a PR department, and I'll admit, this is a little inside baseball for people. But beyond having somebody else to buy you and me drinks, do you think this would be good for Tesla?
Yeah, I mean they're a big company with they have a huge effect on the stock market and the automotive industry, and really their only mouthpiece besides their fans is Elon Musk, and he's proven to be a very strong personality, but also kind of erratic. And I don't know, it would seem wise to have someone at the company who can sort of. I know Elon Musk, him being the person talking is trying to provide transparency. This is coming from the top. This is coming from me. I'm telling you, blah, blah, blah. But also, there's some obfuscation there. Every tweet moves the market or something. And so having a PR company, PR division that could communicate some of the answer people's questions about the company, because when people ask Tesla something, generally you don't get a comment, and there's no one really to ask except for going on Twitter and tweeting Musk directly. So just to have a department that could communicate those things and clarify things Musk says or things that the company's doing, rather than it being leaked emails or whatever, I think would be that's just good business.
Yeah. No, so I agree with you. I think most major companies have a PR department. There's obviously downsides, because a PR person's job is to advocate for the company. That's great. That's how it works. And sometimes that, butts heads with what we're trying to do as journalists. But that's just the way the game's played. No big deal there. I do think it would help Elon Musk and Tesla specifically, not to talk about all his other ventures, but I think it would help them because he would be able to clear things up. There would be fewer what did you mean by that? Suddenly the SEC is asking questions. And, I think it would also help get the cars in the hands of people. I cynically, and I know there's this kind of school of thought out there that they don't want us testing these cars any more than we really can because we will be negative. We'll find negative things about them that, some of the more true believers of Tesla are willing to overlook. I don't think that's the case. I've driven Teslas. I like them. I think that's like a misnomer that the mainstream media is going to carve up Tesla once we sink our teeth into the cars. That's just not true. Most cars are good. I do think things would probably come to light that currently don't, that aren't particularly flattering for the company. We would get more of an opportunity to maybe examine some of the build quality, some of the interface things, really look at the features like autopilot and be like, well, really, what are they doing here? That being said, though, Elon Musk is a good promoter of himself and his message. Whether you agree with it or not, I'm not going to go there. But he is there's politicians who can do this very effectively on both sides of the aisle. To use perhaps a less polarizing one, Bob Lutz was great at this. Can you imagine if Bob Lutz was active on Twitter 20 years ago and Twitter was a thing? He was Elon Musk is really a lot like Bob Lutz in many ways. Yeah. He's somebody who the PR department was just, they'd throw up their hands. You'd call them for comment and GM's PR guys would say things like, oh gosh, what did he say now? And it's I remember, but it was good for Bob and it was good for the company, really. That's why they wanted him, is he was a brilliant spokesperson who had all the credibility in the world, and he was accessible. So I'll say this, even though I do think a PR department would help Tesla and Elon Musk with the blocking and tackling of communication, he's doing an effective job of promoting himself and his company right now in a way that, say, Bob Lutz did 20 years ago. So I could see both sides of it. As the journalist, of course, it'd be nice if when they put out a new car, we could call somebody to test it. And they used to do that. We did a video shoot, 3D XR shoot, and the PR person, she delivered it right to, I think it was the hotel or the track or wherever we were testing it. They have had this. It's not the craziest thing to propose. We had one for Tech of the Year. We drove it up north. They delivered it right to our office, and they updated it on the way. And we had a new version of autopilot, I think, by the time we hit Traverse City or Petoskey. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. It would be a tough job, but I think caged correctly or positioned correctly, this would be a win-win for people who want to know more about Tesla. That's how I would put it.
Yeah, just being able to get basic questions answered. How does this work? People want to know. Your fans want to know about this. It's if I've got a question for any other automaker, I just say hey, what's the deal with this new engine? How does this one get the extra MPG or whatever? And it's really interesting. You can sort of dive deep into the technology and appreciate it. But yeah, Tesla does not need a marketing department whatsoever.
Right.
But I do think a PR department would be useful.
All right. Sounds good. Let's move over to the Honda HR-V, a little less controversial. We have some specs and pricing announced just yesterday, actually. This is basically now we know everything we want to know about the HR-V. It's a little bit larger. It's, the engines have a little bit more power. It has more of a grown-up look I think the old one really kind of looked like a small crossover in every way. This looks a little more substantial. If you had told me this was the CRV, I might believe you without looking too closely at it. It has a little bit more of a presence. The old one was pretty mediocre in every way.
Yeah.
I think some of the bona fides are better now, though.
Yeah, I mean, just the interior design is, way improved. They borrowed a lot from the Civic, which was a great move. The new Civic interior is really cool, excellent. I love that mesh metal vent across the dash. I think that's a really cool look. I'm glad they carried that over. But yeah, just this was a car that desperately needed updating, like a total rework, essentially. It was just so, I don't know, old. They got, I was sad that they did away with the Fit instead of this car. The Honda Fit was great, but now that this new one's out, I might be a little bit more happy with it than the previous generation.
Yeah, I think I love that grill. It reminds me of like the S2000 Club Racer a little bit vibe there. I think it just, you got to really kind of want to see that, I guess. But I think it's a good look. And, this is, I think they needed something like this to make like the lower end of their lineup a little more competitive. I like the Fit too. That was so much fun to drive. But even the outgoing HRV was more substantial than that thing. I remember not particularly enjoying that car on the highway or in winter. So this is much more palatable for like a long trip or something. But I mean, the interior looks a lot better. This is, another one I'm going to be really intrigued to drive. There's a lot of interesting cars coming this year. We haven't heard if they're going to offer a hybrid or not. It's available in some overseas markets. Pricing is they're pretty aggressive on it, I think. I mean, granted, again, this is the bottom of their lineup. Base model does start under $25,000, which according to our article is about an $1,800 raise. So, I think it's timely, like nothing's cheap right now. Including the Honda HRV.
In terms of like the rest of the market and prices and supply and demand, I think a price increase, especially with a complete redesign like this, is warranted for sure. But it's still, quite affordable, starting under 25,000. But
sounds good. Yeah. Should we talk about some cars, some trucks?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. So I just drove the GMC Sierra. It's the first time I've actually driven a Sierra in a little while, to be perfectly honest. It's very, as the Duramax diesel, which I think is a lot of fun. I drove a Cadillac Escalade with that I guess it's been about a month, 3 weeks ago now. So I've been enjoying the diesel and like literally everything. This one is pretty nice. It's there we go. I was trying to find the Monroney here. Sticker is just under $80,000. So this may be the most expensive like mainstream truck I've driven. It's $77,645, and then you have to add in another $1,700 for destination. But this is the Denali Ultimate. So they found a way to, add another layer of just even more lavish, luxurious, but still kind of like GMC themed like stuff onto it. It has Super Cruise, which is very impressive. It's a really solid truck. I mean, when I drove this, it's like, this is why to me, there is no Cadillac full-size pickup truck. They don't really need one. It makes more sense to put it under the GMC banner.
Yeah, 100%. And that Duramax is a pleasant engine. You get pretty decent fuel economy, lots of torque, and it's not really loud or clunky. It's been a while since I've driven the Sierra also, but I haven't been in the Denali Ultimate, but yeah, that is that's a statement. I mean, I do see how a Cadillac pickup would have way different styling, but in terms of equipment and comfort and luxury technology, the Denali has all that, and yeah, I think the look of it is more of a truck person's look than I think Cadillac could get away with.
Yes.
But yeah, it's it's I love that grill on the Denali Ultimate. Was yours like sort of the almost blacked out, like?
Yes.
Yeah.
Titanium Rush Metallic, $500 option, which looks really slick. This is, I think, the best looking Sierra I've ever driven. It's just very subtle. It almost has one of those, like, it looks like it should be floating in the North Atlantic in 1917. It's just gray and like sinister. It's got that kind of dreadnought vibe.
Yeah.
I think the vibe of the Sierra versus the Silverado, they've always been kind of alter egos. I always thought the curvy fenders on the Sierra were maybe a little bit much. And then the Silverado is now way more of a demonstrative design. The Sierra seems to have kind of evolved into being a little more buttoned down. But with the gray paint, we'll call it gray, 22-inch low gloss black aluminum wheels, which are included with the Denali Ultimate package. It just looks great. It really is. It's in some ways it's so sinister you wouldn't look at this right off the bat and realize this is the pinnacle. So. But I mean, for me, that's fine. That's what I would want. I don't want to drive something that's like ostentatious. This is like, it's everything, but without being too over the top.
What was the interior finished like?
It had a lot of nice like wood graining, if you will, kind of that rich sort of like very deepish brown, almost like an ox blood. A lot of interesting textures. Super comfortable. Put a lot of miles on it. Full grain leather, as they say.
Yeah.
Micro suede headliner. I mean, it's inside. It was as luxurious as like any luxury car I've been in. I think GMC is right up there with Ram. I think as far as having like some of their top trims, some of the nicest, most like bougiest interiors as far as like in the truck segment. And it's, to your point, I love the grille, just that kind of like dark gray treatment on an already kind of dark gray body. It's a good looking truck. So a lot of fun to drive too.
What did you think of, what do you think of the latest iteration of Super Cruise?
It works well. It's, they've evolved it since 2018, whatever it was, 17, 18, we gave it the Tech of the Year award for Autoblog, which, was a step forward then. But I think General Motors is doing a great job of like making this technology accessible. So like it's in a number of products. I remember when they said they were putting it in the Sierra, it's not in, I don't think it's in across the trim levels, but I mean, it's starting to roll out now across the lineup. It's in some other Cadillacs. So I think
Chevy Bolt EUV.
I mean, and maybe it is more widely available in the Sierra lineup, but I think in some ways this is a technology that I don't think GM gets enough credit for. I think they've done something cool. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. I was able to test the latest version in the Escalade a few months back and was really impressed with just how well it works. And the fact that it can do lane changes now is really nice. And yeah, there are more and more highways where it actually works too. They're increasing the coverage for sort of the green zones where where you can actually take your hands off the wheel. But yeah, I recently drove the F-150 Lightning with Blue Cruise, and that feels like Super Cruise felt on the CT6. That when it first came out, it feels like Blue Cruise is maybe just a step behind Super Cruise at this point. But yeah, Super Cruise is pretty impressive, and I'd like to try the Super Cruise with towing and things like that at some point. But I'm glad to see it in more vehicles. Some people hate that sort of tech. I think it's really neat, and I don't know. There's something really satisfying about taking your feet off the pedals and taking your hands off the wheel and putting it on your lap and still feeling safe. The car, Super Cruise does a very good job of communicating what it's doing and what it sees and what it expects you to do and when it expects you to do it, which is, I think, part of what makes Super Cruise so great. But yeah, it also, it keeps a good distance, follows the curves well. It just works really well, and you feel comfortable taking your hands off the wheel, which is that can be an odd sensation, giving up control, even the tiniest modicum of control. But that the truck is monitoring you while you're monitoring what it's doing. So, you're still sort of co-driving with Super Cruise. But yeah, it's an interesting sensation, and it's one that I actually find kind of calming.
I'll say this: when your hands are on the wheel, it's a lot of fun to drive a truck. I had the the back kind of window slitted, so you get that crosswind going through. That you only get that in trucks and certain in the 4Runner and Jeeps. Just it's really, you're in that kind of just adventure mode. We didn't do anything adventurous with it. We took it to Royal Oak and got bagels and coffee and walked around and went to a bookstore. Not exactly the kind of thing you normally do with full-size pickup truck, but I mean, it's just,
well, that's probably what most people do with their full-size pickup truck. They're hauling stuff, percentage of the time. But
I was so close to going to get some mulch, but last night, as I mentioned during my after-hours mulching, I don't really need any mulch. I've got a good trench going, an embankment on my front, by the house. I just moved some from the back. And I was kind of I gave myself this little deadline. If you're going to redo the flower beds this year, you've got the Sierra, you've got the diesel, go do it. If you're not going to do it this weekend, which you really don't need to do, you've got enough mulch here, man. You don't need to go fill up the truck and get more. You're just going to have it start cascading down and create more problems. Sort of take the B grade, give yourself a win, and go weed the patio. So that's kind of how my approach was. And then, but now I do need to probably get 2 or 3 bags, which could go in anything. It could go in the Rolls Royce that's supposed to be arriving any minute here, just to do the tree. That'll be my other final project. But I'm not going to do the flower beds. Next time you see a car drop off, let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I should have gone all in and gone for the A grade, or you think just this sort of B plus is enough. I think it's fine. But yeah, man, the Sierra was kind of my break-even point. It's June 7th, June 8th.
Yeah,
you kind of move on to other projects and take the decent grade.
Fair enough.
I drove the EV6, which I also considered throwing some mulch in. I super impressed with that. I did a little bit of a road test because the styling really, I thought I was really taken with it. They call it a crossover, but the dynamics, the proportions, to me, it's more almost a sport wagon.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to drive. I had the single motor version.
Oh, nice.
It had this matte. It also had kind of a matte gray paint, which really just set it off. Mm-hmm. It's funny how something as simple as paint, you could put that paint on a Honda Fit or something. But then when you put it on a car that's that that like, forward looking, that kind of like, the technology is just, advanced. It's an electric car. And I found it really rewarding to drive. It was sporty. I had the rear wheel drive model, again, the single engine. Steering was good. And the interior I thought was pretty clever too. You can essentially toggle between like the HVAC and then the audio system, which I thought was really clever.
Yeah, that one took me a little bit of getting used to. Couldn't figure out how to switch it. There's like a little touch capacitive bar, and I drove this shortly after driving the Ioniq 5, and two unique takes on the same platform, and offering very different vibes. The EV6 definitely has a more driver oriented, sporty sort of feeling behind the wheel, whereas the Ioniq 5 is more lounge like, let's say. So if you're going to be flogging your EV around, I would want to be in the cockpit of the EV6. It just feels like a really good driver-oriented cabin. And I think from the exterior, you also get sort of a more sporty vibe from this car. It does have a slightly shorter wheelbase than the Ioniq 5. The EV6 has the same wheelbase as the Palisade Telluride, whereas the Ioniq is a few inches longer, actually, which made the Ioniq 5 a little more stable on the highway. I mean, they're both big and a lot bigger than they look, but the EV6 is a little more playful in the corners because of that slightly shorter wheelbase. But yeah, it looks sportier than the Ioniq 5. The Ioniq 5 looks, I don't know, kind of weird, but in a way that I really like. Whereas the EV6, I think, is more mainstream attractive. It's not a mainstream looking vehicle, but I think it has a broader appeal.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's interesting that the more risk-taking, like sporty one is the one that turned out being more mainstream. But I like the Ioniq. And when I saw them both, I was like, nope, EV6. Then I drove the Ioniq 5, very taken with it. I keep trying to throw it back to like almost like an 80s kind of theme with the headlights.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That's what I keep trying to like position it as.
It looks like something out of RoboCop from
exactly
from that movie set.
Exactly. But then I was in the EV6 and I'm like, this is gorgeous. It's sporty. There's another guy at preschool drop-off who has one, and I keep trying to be like, who is this guy? But I guess they're actually for sale. Like they're out there. It's not
I've been seeing them
not around. As hard to get as you'd think.
And the Ioniq, is not available in every state yet. Whereas the EV6, that was their goal, was to have one at every dealer by the time their Super Bowl ad aired. And I think that's a huge win for Kia over their sibling. They're very competitive, even though they're from the same company. But that, I think that's a huge plus for Kia, is that they were able to offer it nationwide from the get-go. It's just going to get more people looking at it, more heads turned, and more people interested, and more people in the car. So
let's talk about, speaking of Hyundai, you were in the Kona recently. You went down to Nashville. You drove a number of actually Hyundai vehicles.
I did.
The Kona, though, what do you think?
It's so much fun to drive. It's a lot different than the Ioniq 5 and EV6. It's much
different
smaller
generations. Yeah,
much smaller. Front wheel drive, but man, it's fun. It's still, super super sporty. It's got I think 201 horsepower, close to 300 pound-feet of torque. So this little thing gets cruising pretty quickly, and it's so small and it rotates really nicely. I would love to have one of these to commute in. The one drawback for someone like me with kids is that the rear seat is small. But if that's not a problem for you, that the actual rear cargo area is pretty spacious, and great. It'd be a great car for weekend trips. It's got a range of 258 miles, which is great, and so you can travel pretty far on a single charge. And if you have any sort of good fast charging in between you and your destination, you could road trip in this thing, and it would be fun. It's super sprightly. Some cars, the like naturally aspirated internal combustion engines are gonna bog down in the hills. This thing, it'll just rocket right up any hill. Just plenty of torque. It'll spin the front wheels a little bit if you give it a good boot. And I really like the styling of it too. I think it's a still a good looking car, especially in certain colors. They've got sort of this like sage green that's really nice. They have a bright blue that's also really really fetching. And then inside, it's comfortable. The materials are mostly good, especially in the limited trim level. And you have a digital instrument panel in front of you, and easy to use infotainment. Just all around a great little vehicle.
I think it does a good job of being a good marker for Hyundai's commitment to value. And they'll chase that all day. You can still get, like, their price points are still, very aggressive across the board, really. I mean, even the Palisade, their sort of flagship SUV, you could get a basic one, in the 30s still. So, they'll chase that all day, and I think that's good for them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of the most affordable EVs out there.
Yeah.
It starts at $35,295. There's also, you can get the 7,500 tax credit for it. Really, there's only a few other cars that are electric vehicles that are more affordable. The Bolts, the Leaf, and the the Mazda MX-30 if you live in California, which only has 100 miles of driving range, and the Mini Cooper SE is about the same price as the Kona Electric, which is also a really fun car, also small, but that only has 110 miles of range. The fact that you get 258 miles out of the Kona, that's a huge value in terms of miles per dollar.
Yeah, I've been impressed with the Kona over the years, just the different versions of it. It fared quite well in our small compact car comparison a couple years ago. The Kia Soul won it, but this one had its defenders. Let's put it that way.
I was one of them.
You were one of them. I liked it too. Really, the only thing we didn't like in that contest was the HRV, and honestly, that was, I think, on a subliminal level, why I wanted to talk about the HRV updates. Is I just had such like a mediocre, feel for that car, that crossover in the segment, including things like the Kona. We tested an ICE version of it. It just had moved so much past it, even at that point, that, we'll see. So I did like the HRV though, driving around that fall. Took it to a lot of cider mills. I'll say that. This was a few years back.
Yeah.
Closed out the drive section with the Buick Enclave Avenir. It has been a long time since I've driven the Enclave. How is it these days?
It's feeling a little long in the tooth, to be honest. Okay. But it is very, very comfortable. The Avenir is depends on your taste. I think it's a very mature design, and everything looks really nice. The quilted leather is beautiful. The curvaceous wood trim is also really nice looking. It's mostly a quiet vehicle, very comfortable. This one had the adaptive suspension, which makes for a very calm ride. And this is a very roomy vehicle. It's got more cargo space than a lot of other three rows. There's a lot of space behind the third row. So for a vehicle that is less than the price of a BMW or Mercedes, you get most of the comfort, a lot of the tech, and all of the space for a better price. There's some things about it that I just don't really like. The feel of the switchgear, for instance, feels like it could have been plucked out of a Chevy Malibu or something, and the design itself is not new. It's getting kind of musty, but it is attractive, despite its age. But yeah, I think the space is a big thing, and then the value, the amount of luxury you get for the price is, those two things put together make it pretty attractive if you like the looks.
Yeah, I think it's just, to your point, it's a little long in the tooth. Doesn't have to be super cutting edge, if you will. I mean, it's a Buick, like basically, I think they may call it a midsize, but it's a large SUV. Mm-hmm. Crossover, I guess, technically, because it is unibody. But it is what it is. I mean, I've generally liked driving them. They're nice-ish, but there's nothing that really distinguishes it. Looking at the pictures in your story, which definitely check that out. If you're wondering what we're talking about, you should check out John's story, because it's one of the only places you may see a Buick Enclave these days, it seems like, because I don't see too many of them on the roads. The infotainment seems a bit dated. I don't know if just you had a lower, I don't know if there's a way to option that up. I mean, the Avenir is the top trim. Well, so
that's what you get.
That's it. Yeah, that's not great, Bob. The Acadia, I think, has a nicer infotainment than that. Some of the nicer trims, or at least it's presented nicer. So Buick has some big things in store. This is a volume play. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
All right. So something that's a little more exciting than the Buick Avenir Enclave is the Ford Bronco Raptor. That's kind of awesome, right?
Yeah.
All right. So Jeremy Korzeniewski, our senior editor for all things consumer, is out driving this thing. So Jeremy, what's going on?
Hey, thanks, Greg. Yeah, this is Jeremy from Autoblog. I'm outside of Palm Springs, California, driving the new Ford Bronco Raptor. There's a lot that I can't talk about yet. I can't tell you what it's like to drive. I can't tell you how well it tackles any of the off-roading that we did, or what it's like to drive on the road. You'll have to come back on June 20th to read all of our driving impressions. But I can tell you about the terrain that we drove on. And that'll indirectly tell you a little bit about the Bronco Raptor's capabilities without me breaking any embargoes. I can tell you that we did two distinct types of off-road driving on this event. Rock crawling with absolutely huge boulders, sand covered everything that we could see, inclines, declines, and the other kind of driving that we did a lot of was high-speed desert running, even jumps. We ran over whoops, we ran over just huge bumps, and if we had enough speed, then we'd get all four tires in the air, and that is synonymous with what the Ford Raptor program is all about. Actual parts of the off-road course that we were driving today were used for the 2022 running of King of the Hammers. If you're not familiar with King of the Hammers, you should probably Google that. It is an intense off-road competition with purpose-built vehicles, and the terrain is some of the most difficult terrain that you're going to come across here in the United States. In fact, I would say it's probably the hardest and most intense off-roading that I have ever done on an automaker-sponsored press trip. And I've done a lot of them, including others from Ford. So, just know that, Ford's mindset with this vehicle is, as you'd expect from a Raptor branded vehicle, is to conquer the toughest terrain that you're going to come across. I can't tell you how it handled any of the on-road or off-road driving. However, I can tell you that nothing broke. And keep in mind the kind of terrain that I'm talking about we drove on. To make it all work, it needs massive suspension travel, the kind of suspension travel that you can measure in feet, not just inches. Fox live valve shocks, 37-inch tires, which are just absolutely huge in person. And the fact that they're such big tires and they sit an extra enough outside the regular body work, like more than 8 inches wider than a regular Bronco, that requires just an incredible set of flares to go over the wheels and tires. It has an incredible presence on the road. If you see one of these things drive by, you'll immediately know that it's a Bronco Raptor. You're not going to confuse it with any other type of Bronco that Ford builds. This is the top of the line off-road design from Ford. It has beefy frame modifications. I'll talk more about those in my write-up. 3-liter twin-turbo V6 with 418 horsepower and 440 pound-feet of torque. Keep in mind that is a turbocharged engine. A relatively small displacement V6 for that kind of power. So I'll talk about more how that, what impact that has on the driving experience. I can also talk about the weather. It has been intensely hot here in the California desert. I saw temperatures as high as 108 degrees today while I was out testing. And fortunately, the air conditioning meant that I didn't overheat. And it's not breaking any embargoes for me to tell you that the vehicle didn't overheat either. So more to come on the Ford Bronco Raptor. Like I said, you'll have to get the full story on June 20th. So stay tuned for that. All right, back to Greg.
All right, that was the latest edition of Dispatches. Got to give some credit here. This was John's idea, sort of like port of call letters, dispatches from wherever our editors are in the world. We'll get Jeremy back on in the coming weeks to tell you more about what it was like to drive that rough and tough Bronco. But thanks, Jeremy. Be safe. We'll talk to you soon. So, yeah, pretty excited to hear more about that. Definitely. We should now bring in, what's that, John?
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think embargo is going to be up pretty soon. This is going to be sweet.
Yeah.
So let's now bring in Erik Maier, our multimedia producer. He's going to walk us through the Father's Day gift guide.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. So we are talking about Father's Day. You two are both fathers. I am not, but something.
Hey, you've got a dog.
True. I think there's a strong internet debate about whether or not being a dog dad counts.
Kids are easier.
oh man. Direct all comments to John Snyder on that one.
Hey, my dog has thrown up 3 times this week, whereas my kid has not. So I'm just saying, on the level of degree of difficulty, Blue has been a bit harder. Let's put it that way.
Touche.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. But yeah, so one thing that I really like that we do, it's kind of become an annual tradition at this point at Autoblog. We will just poll the staff and see either what they're planning on getting their dads for Father's Day or what they're hoping to receive for Father's Day. I think that Father's Day is one of those holidays that sometimes doesn't really get the recognition it deserves. Particularly, there's kind of this tendency for men to not be as open about their love for their fathers, and I think that this is a great opportunity, a great time of year to kind of express that. You know, let our dads know we love them. Dads are great. So that's kind of why we do this. One of the reasons why we do this. And it's kind of cool to see what everyone is planning on getting their dads or what they're hoping on getting from their families. But yeah, is there anything that you guys are hoping to get for Father's Day, or
So
Indian food?
Well, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I like to grill on Father's Day. I think that's always fun.
Ooh, nice.
My son is pretty good at helping. He likes to turn the different, the meats, which maybe don't try that at home, holding your 4-year-old over a grill, but the tongs are quite long. So that's always good. Yeah, I don't know. I actually, my Father's Day gift almost to myself that I got myself in November is actually on the gift guide. That's the Ego electric lawnmower. So I think that's a solid gift for all you, dads out there. If you're looking to upgrade to electric, hey, that's there.
Yeah, electric tools are where it's at. I've converted pretty much everything to electric. Electric chainsaw. I love that electric chainsaw.
Nice.
Yeah, things like that.
What brand do you go with, John, for your electric tools?
It depends.
Okay.
I sort of mix and match. I have used Cobalt for electric mower and weed whacker. My chainsaw is a Craftsman. And then sometimes I just get whatever's cheapest at Harbor Freight.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a good call.
I've never tried Cobalt. I would like to. My electric stuff is Ego, Ryobi, Black & Decker, and I think I'm down to 3 brands, all purchased or given to me at different times. So that's why it's a little we have 3 different brands. You can share the batteries, right? But it's just that's how they've accumulated. But there's a lot of cool stuff here in the gift guide. Erik, you want to tell us just some of the ideas here? I know it was a staff submitted thing, so these kind of come from all corners of the Autoblog world, but obviously the lawnmower was my contribution, but I'm kind of intrigued by this coffee thing that senior producer Chris McGraw threw on there.
Yeah. So if you know anything about our senior producer, Chris McGraw, he's a big time outdoorsman. He's always camping, always hiking. He lives in Colorado, so he's always in the mountains, and big coffee guy as well.
as I am too.
Yeah. So he chose this Jetboil flash camping and backpacking stove cooking system. So I don't think this is something that is necessarily has to be for coffee. I'm pretty sure you could heat up like soups or things like that in this. But it seems like a neat device. I'm not a nearly as much of an outdoorsy kind of person as Chris is, but I know that I think Chris has one of these. This is similar to you, Greg. He has one of these and he's recommending it because he loves it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things, it can boil water in under 2 minutes.
Wow.
So if you're like, so if you wake up and you're really dying, it's just one of those, I need coffee kinds of days. Especially if you're camping up in the mountains or something, you want to get to it as soon as possible. Seems like a pretty great option.
I like
it. Does. The one that I've been meaning to get, and this was Amer's pick for the list, is a portable jump starter for your car. I've been meaning to get one forever, and now that I have a super old Beetle that doesn't seem to maintain a charge very well, I think I might have to get one of these. It's crazy how small they are. They're about this, a little bit bigger than your phone, and it'll jumpstart your car. And you can also use it as a sort of a power brick for charging devices or whatever else. And the one that Amer picked is also a flashlight. So if you're broken down at night, you bust this thing out, you can see what you're doing, and you can jumpstart your car and get back on the road.
Yeah, it is. It is really crazy if you're like me. So I've had a portable jump starter for it feels like probably 8 years or so, but it's one of the huge ones. I mean, it's like a little miniature briefcase. It's like nowadays, just like you said, they're so compact. They do so much more. Flashlight can charge your phone. It's way more beneficial. I mean, obviously it's pretty important. It's got to start your car, but in 2022, if your phone's dead, that could be potentially as challenging as if your car battery's dead.
True.
So yeah, definitely that's a great gift idea, I think, for anyone. James Riswick, our senior editor on the West Coast, actually chose a lightweight child carrier backpack, which is pretty interesting. So again, I'm not the dad here, but do either one of you guys ever go hiking, or obviously you guys go on walks with your kids, but have you ever been in a situation where you either have thrown your kid just on your back or in some kind of
we definitely used different carriers. Nothing quite as elaborate as what James found here. This is sort of like the Air Force One of child carriers, but yeah, tremendously useful when you don't want to push a stroller around, or you just want to go for a nice little hike in the woods. Did a lot of winter hikes with Wally just on my chest or on my back, and it was really nice. It was fun, just watching him sort of look up at the treetops and explore the world. It's a fun thing.
Pretty cool. Yeah. We had one somewhat like this, but it was more of like a baby carrier type of thing. And I remember vividly walking around the beaches around Destin, Florida, kind of the Panhandle, a couple years back on like a winter kind of getaway. We drove somewhere warm in our long-term Chrysler Pacifica hybrid and had a great family road trip. So that was pretty cool. Sometimes, your kids don't want to walk and you need to carry them.
Yeah, I definitely get it. And especially if there's any kind of like verticality on the walk, I imagine a stroller is not going to be the best option there.
For sure.
So yeah, something like that seems like a great idea. Another idea, our production manager, Eddie Sabatini, he's actually gifting his dad a 12-month Amazon Prime membership. I think mostly everybody knows about Amazon Prime, I think most people still probably associate it with faster deliveries, which is true. But I think in Eddie's case, it's mostly for the subscription to Prime Video, which has sneakily become a really strong streaming service. I mean, there's a lot, obviously, for our audience. The Grand Tour is a Prime original. I don't know if either one of you guys have ever heard of or have watched the show The Boys that just came back. It's like a really brutal superhero show, but it's really good.
I read the comic books too.
Yes, very good. There's an incredible sci-fi show called The Expanse on Prime Video. It's become really good. And the nice thing about it is it's all the benefits of a really good streaming service plus all the other benefits of just normal Amazon Prime. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1 kind of gift, or a 3-for-1 or 4-for-1 kind of gift, depending on how many Prime services you use. But I think the main one probably is the Prime Video.
Yeah, that's the biggest reason to have it, in my opinion. And there's lots of great children's programming too. Lots of PBS stuff on there.
Yes, that's
nice.
true.
Yeah.
Actually, this is somewhat like as a side note, but everybody says Netflix, like the sky is falling for Netflix. They're losing more subscriptions. I've been watching way more Netflix lately. Like every month in the last few months, I found like a show that I've really gotten into. I call it like the after hours film club. Like everybody else goes to bed somewhat early because we get up pretty early. Speaking of having kids and Father's Day, like 7:30 is a major sleep in around here, you know? So people go to bed early. But in after hours film club with like me and the dog, I've been watching a lot of Netflix stuff. So I'll have to see what's on Prime. I haven't looked over there. I will say this. Have either of you guys watched The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix yet?
No.
It's pretty good. It's a solid, it's like a mini series. I think they're going to do a season 2, that 10 episode block. It's a riff on the novels, which became a movie with Matthew McConaughey, which now it's kind of like a series. It's pretty good. He drives a mid-60s Continental convertible, and nice. I think a Navigator is among the other cars, which is kind of cool. There's no other reference to Lincoln in it. It's just like, it's the underlying sort of, method that Lincoln crept into the original one. There was no like official deal, but I guess Matthew McConaughey got a deal out of it because he became like the Lincoln guy. But I would highly recommend that. So, okay. And I'll have to see what else is on Prime. I ordered some string for my weed whacker. And it arrived courtesy of Prime in like 5 hours. Like I was like, I don't need it this fast. Like I'm not going to cut the grass for another week, but it helped because I was able to do some edging, and that's electric. So why don't we close this out with your Oculus headset there, Erik?
Yeah. So this is one I almost felt a little weird recommending this one because people have very correct opinions about Facebook/Meta, who does now own this product technically. However, I will say, despite your feelings about Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, VR is the coolest thing in the world. If you haven't experienced it, try to find a way to use like a real VR headset. You can do the cardboard headsets for your phones or whatever. It's not the same. You got to find a real VR headset, and I think the best one, just the best all around one, the most affordable one, and the one I have is it used to be called the Oculus Quest 2. It's now called the Meta Quest 2, but you can search either one. You'll find it. Haven't done a great job switching the branding over quite yet. But it's truly mind blowing. I wrote in the guide, it's hard to even describe without experiencing it. It's it really transports you. And there's a couple different things I like about it. Obviously, there are games you can play in virtual reality, particularly there's a great golf game on there that's really fun. To me, that just feels very dad-ish. I think most dads are. Well, this is probably not true, but in my mind, most dads golf.
I enjoy golfing.
I think you if you don't golf already, you have to start once you have a kid.
That is true. I think that's a rule. But outside of the games, especially, one of my parents isn't very mobile. So if one of your parents is the same, I think something like a VR headset can also be really interesting in that just the video aspect of it can really like put you in situations that might otherwise be difficult for you to physically be in. For instance, it feels like you're sitting in the passenger side of a race car, or you might be joining someone on a climb up a mountain, or you can just kind of explore all these museums all around the world, or all these different just places all around the world. And it's just, it really, really does a great job of tricking your brain into, I mean, you obviously know you're sitting in your living room, but it really transports you. And so, John, I know that I know you have one of these as well. Would you agree with my assessment?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you convinced me to get one during the pandemic when everyone was, not hanging out with each other, and you were telling me about this. It just sounds so neat. And then I got it, and the whole family loves it. But you sort of showed me some of the apps and games and stuff, and it was crazy. You and I were playing disc golf together, from our own living rooms, and it felt like we were in the same room. It was it's wild. It was a great way to sort of hang out with someone without having to leave the house. So yeah, for someone who might have a mobility issue, or just lives far away from people, it's a great way to connect with other people. There's lots of you play poker. There's all sorts of stuff. And yeah, it's a great party trick when someone comes over who hasn't seen it before.
Yes.
Put them on the roller coaster with this, and their mind is just blown. And yeah, this one, like, I really like that it's sort of all self-contained. You're not wired up to anything. You have this standalone headset and these two hand pieces, and that's it. For $300, that's cheaper than most video game consoles, and
cheaper than a phone, cheaper than a lot of and the technology just packed into this thing
is incredible.
It really is incredible. Even obviously visually it's amazing, but something that I don't see talked about almost ever is the audio is incredible too. It's like this crazy 360 open air audio. So immersive and so cool. So yeah, I think that's a great gift, and just a great piece of tech in general if you are a technology enthusiast.
Sounds good. There's another deals post floating around out there. If you're interested, you can find that. Just search for our Father's Day Deals 2022. You can see things like a hammock, portable grill, which is always fun for tailgating. Lots of different things out there, different kind of electric lawnmower if you maybe have a smaller lawn, that type of thing. But check that out as well. Good gift possibilities if you're still searching. But that's it. Erik, thanks for joining us today. It was good to hear about the Father's Day gift guide. We'll have to have you back to talk about some of the other gift guides we do throughout the year. And it's always good to hear what we have out there, the ideas behind them, and that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you guys having me on. And I will say, if anybody wants to check it out on the site, we will have the staff picks guide just right on the homepage over the weekend. So if you're listening to this the day it comes out or the day afterward, just head to autoblog.com. It'll be right there for you.
And of course, Erik hosts our stream, which is, why don't you tell everybody what time that is, when and where, how you can get a hold of that?
So it's currently on hiatus because I did just move, and I am kind of building up the new studio. I've been renovating the entire basement area of the new house, so there hasn't really been a great space to set up. However, when it comes back, we do that on Tuesdays from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock Eastern time. We stream racing and driving games. I know the new F1 game is coming out very soon. And actually, to tie it back in, the new F1 game does have a virtual reality mode that you can use with the Oculus Quest 2 that seems like it's going to be pretty mind-blowing. So I'm pretty excited.
That sounds pretty intense.
For sure. So yeah, keep an eye out for that in the next few weeks.
All right. Sounds good. Supersized podcast today. Again, if you have questions, get in the mailbag. You want us to spend your money. We would like to spend your money. That's podcast@autoblog.com. If you enjoy the show, 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We are on every podcast platform. We're there where you need us. John and Erik, good catching up with you. Everybody else, be safe out there. You guys can be safe out there as well. And we'll see you next week.